having a public hearing at this point to be followed by a town meeting to discuss a few proposed ordinances. The first ordinance is, I'm sorry, hold on. Paper in front of me. There's copies also here. We can pass those out in our town meeting. Town of Haddam ordinance to repeal section 52-13 of the Haddam Town Code. The ordinance is for fees for processing of building permits. To have the fees be reinstated for Class 1 renewable energy systems, and to be able for the building department to be able to charge for these fees. These fees were waived back by a town meeting in 2014 for a solar project that we did back in 2014. I have the building inspector here to talk a little bit about things that occur, things that have to happen in order for systems to be inspected. He has some data about our placement for what we've done for solar energy along with other towns, top 20 towns in the state of Connecticut, which were included in that we'd like to share with you. And then we'll give the information out. And the purpose of this meeting is to have a discussion and have the public make comment as to questions that you have and that we can answer. So, Gary, do you want to talk about our fee structure and how it works, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that?
I can talk about it all.
All right, why don't you go ahead?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I've been putting together some numbers, kind of including the peers and aspirants of the town bias, because with 169 towns, it's overwhelming with the amount of numbers that's out there with this. And a lot of the information that I've found is a couple years old. One of the set of numbers was 2015. It was a study, I think it was by Yale or Harvard, put it together. And then Connecticut Solarize had a scorecard out in 2016 and scored the 169 towns. To get the more current codes, like I said, I really put together the numbers of 17 towns that are either geographically close to us, population-wise close to us, what we foresee ourselves being in 10 years, that kind of thing. And it was interesting because it was kind of the same exercise that we went through back in last October when we were looking at the fee structures, and after whatever it was, 40 years of not increasing it, and we did, where it put us in relation to other towns. We're kind of right in the middle of the pack for the other building permit fees. With the solar, I thought it was interesting that in the 2015 numbers that I just received from Mike Trahan, I don't know if he's here tonight, he's a local resident that's with Solar Connecticut, and he had results of the study that I mentioned that Yale or Harvard did, and out of the 169 towns, Haddam was the only one that didn't charge fees. And I knew we were one of the few, but I didn't realize we were the only ones. Again, that was 2015. So 2016, a different company, Solarize Connecticut, I believe is the name of it. They did a study of the 169 towns, and we came in 12th. Part of that was because of the no fees, but they included a lot of other variables that make it easier for the solar installer to come in and pull permits, easier to have the permit, to have the inspection schedule, things like that. They took all those considerations, and we were 14th out of 169, which is pretty good. With that said, I took some more current information and called 17 towns, and we were the only ones still that waived our fees. It looked like all of the 17, with the exception of one, use the same fees that they did for all the other building permits, which is based on whatever their dollar amount is per thousand of construction costs. That's the way we treat all the building permits in town, and that's the way all the other towns do. One town, Durham, just charged a flat fee of $200. Didn't matter how big the system was, they just charged $200. All of these numbers, again, we fell right kind of in the middle of the amount per thousand, because that's what the numbers we were using to come up with the revised numbers last October. So that wasn't a surprise, but it was a surprise that we were still the only town around here that waived their fees. It seemed like a good idea back in 2014. You know, we're all conscious about the energy and conservation and the environment, and I think it's a great idea. When we were together with a local solar company, we had, I think it was 95 permits in 2015, 96, just for solar, and that was kind of at the height of solarizing Haddam. So that was a good number. Before that, in 2014, we had 16, 2017, 16, we had 7 permits, 2017, 9 permits. So it really dropped off after the majority of the people here in Haddam got their systems installed, took advantage of the fee waivers. Everybody's happy. Now we're getting just a couple a year, and it's really taxing to the land use department, specifically the building department, because all the things that I have to do, there was a comment from somewhere saying, well, it seems like it's an easy inspection to make, because you just go out there and you take a look and you sign off on it. But there's much more involved with that, and you really can't take one specific type of inspection out of all the other inspections and say this one's easier or this one's harder, and it should be adjusted by what you charge to do that, because you kind of have to take it all in one figure. Some of them are easier, some of them take longer, but it all averages out. And that's the way that's why there's no difference in the building permit fee. Doesn't matter if it's an electrical permit, a plumbing permit, a building permit, any of them. They're all based on the estimated construction cost of the project. It all equals out. We're not quite at a revenue generating department yet. Hopefully with the new fees, we're coming closer to that. But this is just one of the examples that it was okay a few years ago. See, for whatever reason, we were the only town that thought so. But it was a great idea to get people to use solar, and the photovoltaic systems that were installed in Haddam, I think per capita was pretty high in the state. So that it's a good thing. But I think now it's time to let that go, just like the state and the federal government don't have the rebates anymore for the programs. They only allowed them for a couple years. That was another way of pushing the benefits of solar, but they realized they can't just keep offering these rebates forever. So for all those reasons, and for the minimal amount, we've only had one so far this year. We only had 9 in 2017. We're not talking a lot of money here, but it's money that, you know, we're watching every penny in town hall, and to let that money go away because we're picking one little small part out of the whole picture of energy consciousness. You know, you start to think, well, maybe we should give credit to new houses that have extra insulation or that drive electric cars, because all those things are good for the environment, but we can't give credit to everyone. And to pull this out for just the one portion of solar, you know, we don't have a lot of wind power up here, or hydropower, all the other renewable energy sources, but it just doesn't seem like it's a smart idea to keep it on the books that we're not charging the fee. Because I have to review the plans, we have to process the paperwork, I have to go out there for an inspection. Usually I do a progress inspection and then a final inspection. If the array's bigger, I have to go out a couple times. If someone's not there, I have to go back. All those things cost the town money. So those are the things that aren't covered by the permit fees, but it helps.
I think we got it.
So I just want to give a little bit more background, and then I'll be happy to take some more questions. So obviously, I think the idea at the time when this was done was to try to incentivize residents to be able to do this. And again, to Gary's point, there's many, many means of having different types of renewable energy, sustainable energy. There was a lot of controversy about the amount of building permits that we didn't collect. And time has gone by, and in the past 6 months, there's been quite a few complaints that have come in due to the vendor that came into town and did a majority of the work. And I have a letter I'll read into afterwards from someone. So it's causing, again, additional work for the building department for them to go out. And at that time, there was so many different issues happening between the demand for the building department that the town actually had to hire another building inspector, which the company who was doing the work paid for, but it was still extremely taxing on things that happened with the town. And there's a few potential pending litigation issues that we're facing. Again, some of those things are going to happen, but I'd like to do, there's an opportunity to do another Solarize program. And I didn't know how much of that was it a bad vendor we worked with, how much had to do with the building fees and that type of thing. So when we did HK, we did the Solarize program, we did that with Killingworth. So I spoke to Kathy Eno, the first select woman in Killingworth, and she said that it was very much the vendor's idea to waive these fees. And her comment, and again, she's not here, she can't be here, was before she could get to the selectmen at that time, to warn her to not do it. It was too late, and we already had gone ahead. Killingworth had decided not to. I received a brochure which has area towns, one of which is Susan Bransfield is in here, who's the first select woman of Portland. And Portland's done 2 campaigns. And again, considering to do another campaign for the town, I was very curious to see if Portland waived their fees. I didn't know the information Gary just shared with you at the time. And I got on the phone and discussed with Susan. And I said, you know, how were you so successful? Did you waive fees? Did you give incentives? Like, what did you do? And she said no. She said we didn't. She said we can't afford to do that. And they're much larger than we are. And she said that they just had a really good energy committee that was able to get the word out to the residents. And it just took on. And her husband also had solar panels on their home for over 10 years, and they had a benefit. So just between word of mouth, just very similar to what happened here a few years ago, it took off. So she felt that the savings that they had for their system was an incentive enough to do it. And again, she said to me, how do you say you can't do this and you can't do that? How do you pick one initiative to be able to do that? The state of Connecticut, and I don't think anybody's here been living under a rock, our economy has changed significantly in the past couple of years. I read comments to say that charging these fees isn't going to lower our taxes. And that's true, it probably isn't. But let me tell you something, it's going to help us keep our taxes level to where they are. We had Board of Finance meeting last week, we are looking for money to just be able to do simple capital improvements. The other thing is the high school is about to do a solar project. They're about to put 1,600 panels on their building. At this point in time, we are unable to charge for those building fees. Those building fees will total approximately $70,000 of income to come into this town right now. Now you can say, okay, we're a regional school district and we pay for that. We do. 60% due to the population at the school has to do with us, but 40% goes to Killingworth. When they built the middle school, Killingworth was able to charge the fees they needed to. When we did the roof last year, I didn't waive the fees. We have to send an inspector out on a daily basis to be able to take care of that work. It's taxing, and we need to be compensated for that. It's not about the money to some degree, but we can't afford to be closing off sources of revenue. And I personally don't think it's fair to pick one thing over another. It's not that I'm not energy efficient, my husband has a degree in it. We have windmills in our house. Trust me when I tell you, we're extremely energy efficient. We've done great measures with this town. We switched lighting over for LED. This building's gonna be done next. We have LED streetlights. We've done everything we can. We've saved $10,000 in electricity in the past year due to some of the changes that we've done. Solar is extremely important, but you need to have good insulation, good windows. It doesn't matter until you take all of those other cost-saving measures into effect to save on energy. Solar is one of the last things you need to do. I'm not against it, I'm very much for it. And if solar panels work for the direction on my house, they'd be on them right now. So this has nothing to do with being against green or anything like that. This has to do with something that has changed in the past 4 years. Gary just shared with you, we're the only town, and that doesn't mean it's good, bad, or indifferent, that didn't charge for these fees. But when I get a brochure sent across my desk, and that's something I really seriously wanted to look at, I wanted to know if that made a difference or not. We are looking at every penny. We're trying to do everything we can to work on our infrastructure, our roads, and everything else for the town. And I think it's really important. I get comments of, we lost all this money when we didn't charge. We won't be able to collect these fees if we don't do it this way. So this is what the public hearing is about, for you to come here and ask questions and be educated so that we can make a decision on how we feel about the future of this. Yes, we did increase some of our fees. As Gary mentioned, after 40 years, we needed to do that. We in Haddam don't like change. However, I think it's really important to look at this. And if we're doing the work for it, it is. I've had contractors come up to me and say, the contractor is the one who pulls the permit, not the homeowner. And the contractor who did majority of the work in town was supposed to compensate each homeowner $200 in lieu of not getting these building fees. In some situations, I've been shown documentation that they received the $200 off their bill, and other cases I haven't. But that doesn't equal the amount of work that has to be done through that department. So if it's level and it's fair, so now the contractor, the for-profit company, was not charged the building fees. Only a portion of it, if so, got put onto the resident. So the resident really didn't save in this process. The savings comes into play on what you save your utility bill and things that are going to happen from there. And I think it's important. I think all of us are looking to save and to do what we can in our households, just like we are looking to do in the town right now. Gary shared with me that they had a vendor that came into Enfield where he was before, and the building department was so overwhelmed with their solarized system that they went to the company, and the company wrote a check, he told me, for
Over $100,000.
Over $100,000.
Because they were underestimating the cost of their projects going up in town. So I don't want to say they were unfriendly, but they were far from being friendly. They even had a thing in the planning and zoning that you couldn't have asymmetrical arrays of the panels, which if anybody here in the room has a system on their house, chances are it's not symmetrical because of your vent pipes coming out of your roof, for instance, or the shape of your roof. It just doesn't make sense to make it symmetrical, but somebody in infield planning and zoning didn't like the look of it, so they made it a rule that you couldn't do it. So again, it seemed like that would scare the solar companies away or the people from getting it. Didn't make any difference. It's huge out.
And my last point is on energized CT, there's many ways for savings that we can take. Solar is one of them that are here, but there's 10 of them that are listed. And anybody's free to go online and look at that information. Again, I don't think it's right that we just pick and choose what we charge fees for and what we don't charge fees for. So with that, I will open it up to questions. Yes?
Hi. So
well, you're standing. I had to pick on you.
Just because the cool kids aren't doing it doesn't mean we should.
No, I said that.
Now, by your own admission, this isn't costing the town that much right now, correct?
Right now?
Yeah.
It will very soon because of the project coming up. Yes.
We lost $39,000.
If we do, excuse me?
We lost $39,000.
All right.
Not a huge amount.
Well, and our building official is a salaried employee, correct?
Yes.
Not hourly. So his hours there doesn't cost us more if he's there or not. It's just he's going to get paid one way or the other, whether he does his inspections or not, whether we pay for him or not. And you said the school is going to be putting this huge railing, correct? And big building fees. We're taxpayers, we pay for that. If it comes out of our tax money, it's not like someone else is paying for those tax fees.
It does.
Our money.
60% of it does.
Correct, we're paying for it anyway, so that's just that. And also, we had said you're trying to grab every little penny, and thank you for doing that. Why, from, trying to grab every little penny to make the budget work, correct? We're trying to save money here and there. Why is it that when I look down through the proposed budget, the first 5 people I see getting increases, proposed increases, equals over 4%, almost 5% of increases. Your assistant is scheduled for an 8.9% pay raise. And you're, yeah, take a look at it. I looked at it today. It's perfectly.
What does that have to do?
It has to do, but what it has to do with, you're saying that this few $100s is going to save the town, but you're willing to spend money on the other
It's not
side.
$600, it's $1,000.
What it's doing is hurting the homeowner who wants to do it, has to do it, where they now have to pay $600 more than they would have. And that's not going to affect our taxes. It's not going to bring our mill rate down at all. It's not going to have, it has zero effect on our mill rate. None. And that's my opinion. That's my opinion.
Unfortunately, Sean, I'm not following your math, and just for the record, the town employees received a 2.25% increase.
The Board of Selectmen is scheduled for a 4.3% increase, all 3 of you. This is right off the
they're not.
It's fine, you're entitled, if that is not what we approved.
No, it's not the Board of Selectmen, it's what the Board of Finance has suggested.
The Board of Finance went by the numbers that were agreed on the union contract.
Maybe you put the wrong ones up online.
Drop that.
Yeah, I don't
Let's
know.
get back to Sue.
I don't know, I just want to be able
Excuse me,
to.
it's my turn to talk.
I'm talking right now, I just want to be able to.
No, I'm talking to the lady in front
All
of the
right, you guys,
What's
what was
going on?
approved was a 2% increase, that is it, so I
I'm
don't
just
know.
saying that this little bit, the one you're doing this year, the one you do next year, is not a cost savings for the town at
I
all.
appreciate it.
But it is a cost for the homeowner. The homeowner is the one that's going to suffer, not the town. That's all.
Yours, thank you. Okay, yes.
What's the point of just saying, we're not going to charge permit fees anymore? I mean, it just seems like a stupid decision that was made originally. I can see the incentive. But to now, you have to have a building permit, or a permit for plumbing, a permit for electricity. Don't you need a permit for geothermic? Do you need a permit for wind thing? Okay, so you have to have a permit for everything, and then you're just going to say, oh, solar, you're not going to do it. If you're doing a project, you know you're going to have to pull a permit. You can't say, well, forget it, I'm not going to do solar because I have to pay a permit. You got to pay a permit fee for everything. That just seems ridiculous to pick one thing. Is it too late for us to collect the fees for the solar at HK? No. Okay, so if we could get
So,
that.
you have to back there.
Hello.
Hi.
I'm not a resident here, but I came because I belong to the business networking group in Middletown, and somebody emailed me saying this was going on today. I work with Trinity Solar, and I hope I can clear up just a little bit for you, so maybe a lot of other questions may not be necessary. These fees, I am shocked that you didn't have to collect. Out of 169 towns, you're the only town that didn't pay. Everybody else is paying, but you know who should pay? We pay. The solar company that does the installation pays for everything. You've got about a little over 104 years. We do 300 installs a month, just in Connecticut, 11,000 throughout the Northeast. We pay for all inspections, all permits and everything, and our installs are absolutely free, unless you want to purchase the system. And even if you want to spend $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, you can't do that, then your electrical bill will be zero. But we will still do the installation for free. We will still maintain, monitor. I don't mean to, advertise my company,
Well,
but
I'm not
I'm just
looking
in
for an
shock.
infomercial, I just want facts.
I'm just in shock that you guys didn't pay those fees, and I feel terrible. I know they cost thousands of dollars. We pay them every time I sit with a homeowner, which is 2-3 times a night and afternoon. I tell them, we take care of all the permits. You don't have to do anything except have a cup of coffee and watch the panels go up in one day.
So your company pays the fees?
Of course.
On rentals only?
Pardon me?
On lease only?
Excuse me.
No, there's no lease. It's a purchase or power purchase agreement, which just means that we put up the panels for you at no cost if your home qualifies, which this gentleman mentioned, just need some sun, good roof, and you own your own home. And then we do all the work and you just pay a lower electric bill. Those are the benefits of clean renewable energy. You get a lower electric bill. Eversource's rate's about 21 cents in Eversource. They're going up in June, they're going up in January. They applied for 5 more increases in 2 years. They won't get it all, but they'll get half, which is still another 6 to 8%. Point is, your rates go up every single year. You get a fixed, predictable rate with most solar companies. Anyway, so please make sure the solar company that gives you the install pays for it. That's what they're paid to do, that's what they do. And we've got 35,000 installs in the Northeast in just the last 10 years.
Thank you.
And so we're local. Thank you.
Yes, you were next.
I was going to ask something, but it was obviously answered, is why does the town, why are there not conversations with the solar companies for them to pay the fees?
Well, that's what they should be doing, but the capability of collecting the fees from anybody, the contractor, was taken away. And that's what we're looking to reinstate.
And the companies are for-profit, so.
I understand that, they're for-profit, all the more reason.
Right.
The deal should be, if you solarize the town, you pay the fees for the permits. I don't understand why that wasn't done from the get-go.
I don't know.
That's a good question.
Thank you. Anyone else? Jeff? I can't, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Thanks. So the fee just for the school, the permits, just for this school project would be how much?
So we were told initially that was it 2.5 million. You guys, if you don't
There's been
mind.
about 5 conversations.
Yeah. We were told initially that the expenses were going to be about $2.5 million, and then, which would have generated about $54,000 in fees. And then last week we were given an updated number about $3.5 million. So now it's about $70,000.
But all this is unofficial because they haven't submitted anything
Right.
officially to us, so we don't know what the construction, it hasn't even gone out for bid yet.
So, you know, regardless of what we pay, yeah, we pay for that in our taxes, but it's a regional school district. So 60% of that is our money, but 40% of it isn't. So that's income that comes to the town that we would not be getting any other way.
So if it's $70,000, we get 40%, that's $28,000.
Correct,
That goes right into our coffers.
correct.
And if the company pays it, as this gentleman said,
Which they are.
then it's $70,000 we get.
Well, it's going to be, the company, the contractor who pulls the permits is going to pay 70. Whatever that amount is,
Right.
that's calculated out by the formula that we have for our building fees. That will be the check that is written to the town of Haddam,
Okay,
yes.
so when our budget is as tight as it is, and the state is making us pay for more and more
Yeah,
stuff
the
and giving us less and
state is
less
taking
money.
away $1 million of our money this year, even though they approved the budget that they did last year.
So
yes.
$28,000, worst case scenario, $28,000 seems like a no-brainer. I don't know why we wouldn't charge the fees when that's what the town does.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes. Pablo.
Pablo Arroyo. My comment is that I think that if you look overall, there's 2 sides to this issue. First off, is it a financial issue or a permit, a town process issue, or is it an energy issue? And as I talked to some people throughout the town, they've have had the presumption that in fact this is an anti-energy campaign.
That's not.
But
that's not-
I see it far to the opposite. The way I see it, in fact, this is energy friendly. We only have, since the inception, 128 uses or 128 installations in this town that has a residence of roughly somewhere between 7,000 and 8,500. I don't know, do the math, rough math. But when you look at 128 as compared to that, my math isn't that good, but there's a decimal point that follows, and then there's the people that are getting solar, okay? Not to minimize that, but as you can see, since the gentleman stated, I believe the inception was on 2015? 2015? The numbers that you Yeah.
2014.
2014. In 2014, there were 16 installs, okay? That was like the big push. And then we get into 2015 and there were 96 installs, okay? Banner year, great. And then we start into essentially the sunset period of the solar, and as we know, the town was left high and dry. However you want to paint it, that's how it was left by Be Free and Solar. Essentially, they became free. They used their own slogan, be free of Haddam. Okay? Be free of your complaints. They're up in mass. They're free of everything. You're stuck with whatever is left. But my point being for the evening is that we're not being anti-energy. No, there's a process. And the gentleman in the back, actually, I agree with you. The officials from the town, they go around and they work on salaries. The salary is allotted for at the beginning of the year. But your formula, I think, again, not to be argumentative, but I think that your formula is somewhat flawed. In that, it doesn't take into calculation, it takes into calculation their salary. They get paid X amount for X amount of work. But it doesn't take into calculation the man hours that they're taking, that they're not being, the town is being compensated, that the town is not being compensated, the man hours that they're spending on doing solar. Or, if in fact, the permit was there, it would defray somewhat from that cost. Essentially, you have a pitcher of water. I can pour water out of that pitcher. Eventually, the pitcher dries up. Or you can have a faucet, okay? And what I mean by that is that, again, the town, by again having these fees or having these permits in place, again, far and few are being utilized, so I don't see where it would be such a high impact. But when the permits are utilized, in fact, that is being taken care of, and the town is actually getting money for those installations, and monies are being put back into the town coffers. And again, the town doesn't have a magic wallet. That does not exist, okay? And again, that goes back to the pitcher full of water analogy. You keep pouring out of that pitcher runs empty. You need that faucet, you need to turn it on, okay? And the faucet is when we have things like building permits that people, in fact, contribute back to the town. Granted, we pay taxes. Everyone in this room pays taxes, okay? But when we don't charge permits, everyone in this room is paying for that permit that's not being charged, okay? Everybody's paying for it, or that one particular resident that decides to utilize the service can utilize it. We're not saying don't utilize it. By all means, you know what? You want geothermal, you want solar, you want natural gas, by all means utilize it. But pay for it. That's all. Bottom line.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brenda, you had your hand up. No?
I was just wondering how much the fee is.
It depends upon the cost of the system. Gary can explain it for you.
As I was putting together the number of permits, it varied anywhere from a couple $1,000s to $67,000 was what the estimated cost of these arrays were being put on houses. So you take that number, divide it by 1,000, because it's $20.26 per $1,000 worth of estimated cost. So we had $3,908,000 worth of work done in the lab since 2014, and that would have been almost $39,000 worth of permit fees that we didn't collect.
And how is that calculated? By the amount of time that you have to spend on site to do?
No, that's what I was saying. You really can't take each individual type of permit. It all kind of averages out. So it's all based on the estimated cost of time that the person is working on it and the materials that they're using.
So some we're going to make up ahead and some we're not. It's
Right.
based on the cost of the system and and then there's a formula calculated on the cost of the system. Because usually if it's a larger system, it costs more, it's gonna take more time. So if it's a smaller system, it's gonna cost less, it's gonna take less time. Although there are certain things you need to do for Haddam inspections and stuff.
And because I didn't, my question really wasn't answered before.
Oh, sorry.
Why is it that you do not require the companies?
Because an ordinance was passed in 2014 to waive all of those fees.
But isn't, so if you decide to not, to get rid of that ordinance and to charge the fees,
Correct.
why, in addition to saying, okay, from now on, we're gonna charge the fees, but we're not gonna charge it to the homeowner, we're gonna charge it to the companies?
It does go, whoever pulls the permit is who gets charged the building. Whoever comes to apply for the permit needs to pay for it.
If you've had work done on, excuse me, if you've had work done on your house, you might know that some contractors immediately say, I paid $100 for the permit fees, you owe me $100, and you write a check. Other ones roll it into the cost of doing the work. It really depends on the contractor. Like the gentleman said, a reputable solar company like his, they absorb that cost because it's part of the cost of doing business. And that's the way almost all of them do, and that's why the other 168 towns here in Connecticut collect that, because it's not money out of the homeowner's pocket. They're not writing a check for that. It's part of doing the work, and it's just doing business. So it's kind of expected. Like he said, he was surprised. I've talked to other companies that weren't familiar with doing work here, and they were equally surprised.
Yes, Cheryl.
If I may just quickly, to Sean, to your point where you said you'd like to see that benefit, as a benefit to the homeowner, not to have to pay the fee. And I kind of heard a lot of that discussion, Facebook, whenever all this is going on. So I have a handful of friends that I know have solar panels, so I called them up. There was 5 that I called, 2 got back to me. And I actually had them pull their contract. In their contract was the building permit fee and what it cost. I asked them if they were refunded this money, or if they were told that in fact the town of Haddam did not charge a fee, and they said no.
I have a friend that said,
So-
yes.
But that's, I'm just saying,
Well,
so
I
it's
think
to really,
So it's just, I
Some
understand,
did.
Cheryl. I understand your point.
Some
Cheryl.
when you
did.
have only one town in the state not collecting the
As I said.
fees, most contractors who are doing the solar panels are probably building those fees in.
It's in their profits too. I have a question about electrical permits. About the electrical, do you charge, is there electrical, is there a fee for the electrical inspection, electrical permit?
Yes.
When you do the solar, you have to pull a
Building permit and electrical permit.
So
That's
it's
correct.
not completely free to the customers?
No, it was all waived.
Okay. Yeah.
Anything to do with solar was
Okay,
waived.
so you have to go inspect electrical anyway.
Right.
Correct. So they're inspecting electrical, you can't inspect the building at the same time?
You said it's all waived. There's different aspects to the inspection
No, I'm
depending on when you
not
go.
asking for my own application, I'm asking a question.
So, wait, you guys, this way, there were no fees charged at all, even
No.
for the electrical.
Okay, we just said it was.
No, I'm sorry, I said there was not.
He said there was not.
The bad acoustics in here.
Okay.
Nothing to do with PV systems.
That's why I want to make sure you heard the answer correct. Okay,
And before we move on, one thing that I might address regarding, some people said they got the rebate back or the feedback. I know solar companies typically address leased systems and bought systems differently. You're not available, you're not eligible for any rebates and things if you're leasing the system. The installer gets all that. So that's possibly why you're getting different ideas from homeowners, that some got it, some didn't, maybe because their system varied.
all right, so I'm only going to take a few more things because we still have another topic to discuss, and the town meeting was supposed to start 10 minutes ago. So if there's someone who has a comment to make that is in addition to what we've already discussed or a different point of view, I'd like to hear that right now. Yes, sir.
Our environment is going down the tubes at a rapid rate. Solar is a way of addressing that. Every single one of us benefits from every solar installation. Doesn't matter whether the homeowner benefits from electricity, we benefit from an improved environment. I disagree that a bigger solar array is more difficult to inspect, because if you look at a typical array now, it's basically a number of lines coming to a junction box. It's no more difficult to inspect a 40-panel array than it is to inspect a 20-panel array. It's just the line goes out a little further, and there's a couple of additional things. I know that because I have an array in my backyard. We've already said you don't get paid any more or less if you go out, and we've also said there aren't that many inspections going on, so that it isn't that big a drain on the town.
Correct, but we want to do another campaign, and that's what's driving some of this.
And
Okay?
that's fine.
And I think it is that we're all safe.
And then I say, it is incumbent on us as inhabitants of Earth, which is in trouble, to do everything we can to help it. And the feds have backed off, and they've said there are no problems. Anybody with a brain know there are problems. The state has got themselves in a budget problem, and they've backed off, and now we're going to make it difficult in this town when we don't really have.
Anyone else?
If I can just address the one thing, you said 20 panels, 40 panels, the same. But one thing is, which you never know until you get out there, there's always extenuating circumstances that the electrician didn't do something correct, or he's not there.
That would be at the junction box, which is one point of inspection.
Right, but you have to manage the wires up the panels and how it's attached to the roof, and if the roof's strong
That doesn't
enough.
matter how many panels you have. It's the same spot, the same box, the same inspection.
No, my point is that possibly, I had to crawl through attics confirming that they reinforced those roof joists adequately to support the panels. And those are the kind of things you don't know, and that's my only point is, it's not always the same set inspections between, doesn't matter if it's 20 panels or 14 or 40.
You still have the same checklist.
All right, we're going to stop. He
Yeah.
is, so, yes. Did you have?
I did,
you
yeah. Mike Trahan, Joseph Circle.
Hi, Mike. We talked about you earlier.
Oh, you did?
It was all good.
Oh, good.
Actually, you already mentioned you.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Well, first, I just want to say thanks for whoever calls Mike. Joseph Circle does a great job. I've been in town for 10 years. Last winter, it's been great. I don't know what.
Stay on top of it.
Yes, so we're running along, Mike. We're
Yes.
running along.
So just, I work in the solar industry as well. I just want to relate the fact that on average, the systems installed in Connecticut run about 8,000 watts, and this gentleman can probably correct me. So at $3.50, which is the average per watt cost installed, the average system in Connecticut is costing homeowners about $28,000 if they purchase the system out of pocket. At $20 on every 1,000, that's $560 in permit fees that the town of Haddam would be charging the average homeowner for the average size system. The state of Connecticut says, and the Connecticut Green Bank says it doesn't cost any more than $200 in cost for each town to permit the average size system. So I'm not here to argue for zero. Zero was great. Haddam wasn't the first. Bridgeport was the first. Manchester was the second. There were a couple other municipalities that did zero, but I don't know if they're still doing zero now. But the point is, I'm here to argue for fairness. So I understand that $560 would be the cost for the average consumer. I think something closer to $200, which I think is what Westford does. In Durham, there's $200.
Durham's the only one still left in the state of Connecticut that
Okay.
does. Durham's
But
the only town.
I think in order for the town to cover its costs, I think $200 would be a fair enough.
Yes, Jeff. And then I'm going to cut it because we're moving to the next topic.
My wife and I recently built a new building. It was super energy efficient in every way, shape, and form. It does not have solar. We paid a boatload of fees to the town, permit fees. There was no government subsidy because our building was energy efficient. They were only doing solar. But we paid the fees. The inspector came out, It's not just one inspection, it's multiple inspections that they have to come back and back for. So I think we did our part by having an energy efficient building that takes less heat, less electric, et cetera, for the planet. But we paid a lot in fees. I'm wondering if all the earthlings here would like to pitch in and help us with those permit fees. I don't expect it, we didn't ask for it, we built the building, that's what the town charges. It's one of the only ways, aside from property tax, that the town can get revenue based on our draconian laws in the state, and if we give them up, we're giving up a lot of money. So I think this is absolutely appropriate. This is a lot to do over nothing, and we're sacrificing a lot of money to the town.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to move to the other ordinance that was proposed for discussion tonight. And this is something that is going to be, I don't believe it's going to be resolved this evening. I think it's something, though, that we need to have a discussion about, again, for public hearing. So there's a sidewalk ordinance that's proposed. So I want to give a little history about how this came about, why it is, and I think we need to have a discussion because Haddam is going to start to have some growing pains, and we need to have a discussion at some point to decide how we're going to take care of that. So at this point in time, the sidewalks in Haddam Center, and again, there's been some rumblings about this ordinance. This ordinance only has to do with snow removal and ice removal. It does not have to do with if your sidewalk's cracked or needs repair. That is not what this ordinance is about. So I'm going to clear that up right from the beginning. Down in this Haddam Center right now, the plowing and the ice that's done there is done by the town crew. There's a lot of town space there, there's state space there, there's Field Park Association space there. All of that is taken care of. If you come from a town that doesn't have that and has a lot more sidewalks, you're used to 127 out of the 169 towns, and again, I'm not saying because they do it, it's right, all have some type of sidewalk ordinance that no one likes because it involves the taxpayer or the property owner to do some type of work. The idea is that while the town crew is out doing the roads, we have 100 miles of roads, that the property owners would be responsible as kind of an all working together type of community, take care of the sidewalks in front of their homes. This is not meant to hurt anybody. This is meant for the town to do whatever. How it exists right now is that the town crew takes care of Haddam Center. We have some issues with that. The issue mainly is because a few contractors who are plowing the parking lots in that area actually take the snow and dump it on the sidewalk. Okay? So now you have a pile of snow on the sidewalk that probably going to have this much snow. Town crew's out. Piece of equipment that they have to work on the sidewalks that works very nicely, that they like to use, they can't because this pile of snow has frozen or it's unable to be moved or they have to do it twice or it freezes. So if we get a thaw, and we don't know how the winter goes because we've lived here long enough, it prohibits anyone crossing. And the main area that's affected is the Citizens Bank corner over to walking to Public Works. So that's the main abuser. Okay, I know sometimes when there's big piles of snow, there's no place to put them, but I don't think that's the place the contractor should be dumping the snow. We're looking for a way to try to control that, so that's a concern that came up with this. The other issue is that we got a grant. We applied for a TAP grant that we received for Tylerville to put sidewalks in. We received a $1.6 million grant. As you all know, water's been approved in Tylerville, and we're getting a lot of activity there as an economic center, and we want to support that. We have the opportunity of the Essex train coming in, parking, people get out, they need a place to cross. We can't put a crosswalk for them to go safely from Bridge Street, from Eagle Landing, maybe over to the Great Station, or to anything else, because there's no sidewalk. So this sidewalk grant that we're receiving is going to allow us to be able to put safe crosswalks in. And it's something that's going to be coming a year or two down the road. the town crew is going to be taxed, you know, in doing more and more and more. So the thought of the idea was that we would have the property owners shovel that area in front of their property. Now, most business owners do that. Most business owners want it to be safe for their customers. They want to make sure they can come in and they can do that. The town, again, maintains there. We take care of Brainerd Library. And there's areas, though, there's other additional areas that are residential areas that aren't shoveled. And to be honest with you, I don't know if people would be walking out in the middle of January on those sidewalks. So in talking this through and getting some feedback and listening to what people have to say, this is kind of what we're facing. So we can just have the town crew take care of it. We would have to hire additional contractors at that time. Or we could try to work something out where there's some type of community help, in making sure that the sidewalks are clear. This is not a punishment to the business owners. This is not a punishment to those residents who have sidewalks. In certain places, particularly 154 obviously has some sidewalks. The state of Connecticut plants their sidewalks, doesn't take responsibility for them, and then basically says the town needs to take care of them. This is what I've been told or explained to as growing pains. So the more that we get businesses in, the more that people are walking, which we want them to be safe. I was having a heart attack when there were the ice jams and people were walking on the road and doing things. I was afraid people were going to get hurt. This is just something that's going to happen. So I don't particularly think this is a topic, I mean, we're here to talk, again, public hearing, to hear what the public has to say. This is not the town trying to pick on somebody, and we know everybody pays a significant amount of money in taxes, okay? So this is just something about how do we want to handle it, how do we want to look at it, and knowing what we're going to face down the road, we have to have this discussion. And if everybody says, I hate it, and I don't want to do it, then we vote no. And if people say, you know what, maybe it's not a bad idea, maybe we could do this, maybe we could do that, we can't. We can look at that. We can put an ordinance together to make sure, so my issue that I'm having down in the center right now can be addressed. Because I've not done those business stores, and I've said, you can't do this, and they're kind of like, well, make me not do it. I mean, you know, I need a means. I mean, I'm not going to walk around and be the bad guy all the time. But I need a means for the town to be able to make sure that doesn't happen. Because if you think about it logically, dumping snow in the middle of the sidewalks that we all use and we need to be able to be safe and cross is really not a smart thing to do. So I'm going to stop there. I'm going to open it up for comments or questions. We're going to talk about it for about, I don't want to not give it enough time, but I'm going to say I'm going to go to 7 o'clock right now because we're late. We're already really late on the town meeting portion. And I'm sure some of the questions are going to come up. But the idea of the sidewalk ordinance is to have a healthy conversation about it. Okay? So, yes.
I have a couple questions. One is, in other towns, when you're a homeowner, aren't you responsible for your sidewalk and the liability? If someone gets hurt on your sidewalk, are you not liable as a homeowner?
So right now, the sidewalks are, and Liz Livens here, she can correct me if I'm wrong, she's our town planner. Right now, I believe the sidewalks are on the town right of way.
Well, they're mostly in the state right of way.
State right of way.
Right.
Which really doesn't mean anything, it means we're
No,
responsible.
but
But as far as the liability,
I believe when I lived in Meriden that if my walk wasn't shoveled, I would be held accountable.
you would, because you had a sidewalk ordinance.
Yeah.
But we don't have one.
Okay. The other thing is, as far as those contractors, the businesses that hire those contractors obviously have the contractor's information.
Correct.
Can't they be fined?
They should, then that's part of what.
That's fine. I know some.
There's some revenue.
I'm sorry, I gotta shovel my driveway.
Thank you. Yes, sir, you had your.
I was gonna say that about the fines, if the contractor dumps snow on the sidewalk, fine.
Right, I agree with you.
Simple as that.
That's
For
really,
years.
that's,
And you got in trouble if you pushed snow on the sidewalk.
yeah, thank you, thank you. Yes.
Well, you talked about growing pains, so if we are growing and more businesses are coming to the area, that would obviously increase the tax roll. I think with the increased tax roll with more businesses and levying fines against those people who are contractors and dump on the sidewalk, you would probably have money to, you generate the income to take care of the sidewalks and be able to do that. Because you're relying, one business could do it, one business doesn't, and whose sidewalks are. It just gets to be, I think, a big can of worms as more businesses are coming to the area and there is more tax dollars generated. And if there are contractors who do not abide by the ordinance that you create where they have to keep the sidewalks clean, you can fine them.
Thank you. Yes.
I've not been any one way or another. I grew up in Middletown, having to shovel sidewalks, so I get it, and the businesses in Middletown will have to do it. But I would like to suggest maybe some tweaks to the ordinance. 12 hours is a little short. Say someone that has to go be at work at 6 in the morning, the storm ends at 5, they don't get home till 6 at night, they're already beyond that 12. I think 24 is a more reasonable amount of time. And you have to determine when you're going to call it. I know it says the end of the storm. The problem is plowing operations go after the storm. So I know some towns don't really start that clock until all their plows are off the road. That way it gives the homeowners a chance not to be behind the 8 ball once again.
Yeah,
that'd be my.
I think that's going to be a gray area because when you call it, because in some parts of town it's snowing over here and then it's not snowing over here and then it may be over in Haddam, and so.
I think the solution is when the town decides, okay, our trucks are off the road, the clock starts now, and I think that's a reasonable way to do it. As I said, I've been used to years of shoveling stuff.
Yeah, me too. There are a few other hands, yes.
You mentioned that there are sidewalks on 154.
Yes.
And they're in terrible condition.
They
You
are.
wouldn't even want to walk when there's no snow.
No, they are.
And to ask those homeowners to
Right.
shovel those
Which
sidewalks.
is not, no, and that's not what it was meant for. It really was more, so this is the issue with the ordinance, the way we are gonna have to do it is we need to be fair. I don't think it's fair to say, make the new sidewalks in Tylerville be, and not do anything with Higginham Center, right? And then do you say the businesses have to do, then the residents don't, but then, how do you make it work, right? So I think, again, it's part of the discussion to be able to have to say, how should this look and what can we do about it? And I think there's ways that we can address it, but I think that we have to start having conversations about it now because things are going to start, to change. Not crazy change, but there are going to be some growing pains. And I think as a town, we have to accept some of them and say, yes, we like it or no, we don't. And how are we going to work on it? What are we going to do? So, yes.
I think for purposes of drafting an ordinance, you need to be a little more precise. Using the word maintaining is a little vague.
I don't know if the word maintain was.
Well,
That's actually going to be my
it says, shall be responsible for maintaining that portion of any public sidewalk which abuts or is adjacent to such owner's property. Maintaining is a little bit vague.
Yeah, I mean, the purpose is for snow and ice.
Right,
and-
so
and
you
that's
need
what
to
it
be
says.
more specific. If you're going to be specific about it, don't leave
Yeah.
vague terms.
No, the intent again was snow and ice, but thank you for your comment. Yes.
I was going to read the same thing. That
Right.
I think that's where that rumor started about because maintaining makes it sound like I'm going to have to fix the cracks or so I don't know.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, the
So this
specific
would-
piece of legislation that was identified has to do with snow and ice, so.
Yes, as each owner, the ordinance says that each owner has to make, it says maintain maintenance obligation, and it says each owner as defined herein shall be responsible for maintaining that portion of any public sidewalk which abuts or is adjacent to such property. So I think that's where that thought came of, so thank you for clearing that up, because I think people read that and think, oh, I'm gonna have to fill in a crack, I'm gonna have to, maintain it. To me, sounds like fixing it.
Yeah.
So that leads to my second question. If the 24-hour idea is better, do we vote this ordinance down, or do we accept this and then the ordinance is changed, we vote again? Like, how are we going to process
I think what we
this
do
ordinance?
is we take all the comments that are said about the ordinance and we go back and we tweak it and then we come back. And I think that the way that it's written now isn't going to be what people want, so we vote no.
Okay, that's just one of the
Yep. Yes, Jan.
This is the first time I've come here to talk about sidewalks. So I would like, there's 3 properties I'd like to talk about quickly. I still have a sandbag in front of the piece of property for sale at, next to the B&B. I still can't walk through there, I still can't ride my bike through there. So as I said before, the town of Haddam is making me, a houseboat. I use a walker and I can't walk anymore. When you're talking about snow and ice, there is no berm, there's nothing between the 154 and my sidewalk. There's not an inch of land. So as the plows come through, everything goes on my sidewalk. And the next plow coming through is gonna put it back.
Push everything back on your sidewalk.
The other thing I'd like to bring up is a little side trip. The Lara's property. The state let water go across their sidewalk and down across this beautiful stone wall for years and years and years. And then when they put in I want to say, there's a word I'm looking for, the curb. They put a bigger curb where the water was going over, which solved the problem, except the Lara's sidewalk is at an angle, it's unsafe to walk. If I go to the library, I have to walk the street. It's not their problem, it's the state of Connecticut's problem.
Which unfortunately, they won't accept any liability. It's our problem, because they're not going to take care of it. It's the town of Haddam's problem. Unfortunately, the state of Connecticut doesn't like sidewalks. They don't, because they don't want to maintain them. So they give you a really hard time to even put them in. So if they do put them in, they want nothing to do with them. They don't want the liability, they don't want to worry about it, they don't want to do this, they don't want to do that. So it becomes an issue for the town. And even when, and Liz and I we went back to a history test, and Mr. Brooks helped identify us and told us how he used to ride his bike down that way. Not that long ago when he was young, by the way.
It was a tricycle.
It was a tricycle.
12 years ago.
He said that those sidewalks existed back then, and maybe at that point in time, there's no documentation to prove liability or whatever, but things have obviously changed. So in this day and age, they're just not going to do it. They're just not going to maintain them. They're not going to do what they need to do, and that really comes to us, and that just kind of brings it all full circle. So, I would never expect a property owner to maintain a sidewalk. I don't think that's something the state put in a sidewalk and they don't take care of it. Unfortunately, the town's next in line, but I don't think that's something that a resident needs to worry about. So to your point, unfortunately, they are the state sidewalks, and I think Ms. Glidden tried to make that very clear, but unfortunately, we're left to take care of them, just like we are in the summer.
The Lara's property makes me think of the bridge that went through on Walkley Hill. It was a big problem and a serious issue had to be fixed, and the town fixed it. And I think that maybe the Lara's sidewalk is our issue, not theirs.
No, thank you for saying that. All right, anybody else? Yes.
Is the grant money that you received or are receiving for Tylerville, is there any portion of that money that you can allocate for refurbishing sidewalks by the library? No.
Every penny of that money we got for Tylerville is going to be spent on Tylerville. It's very, very expensive to fix, unfortunately. It was very specific to a specific area. Welcome to the world of getting grant money from the state. It would be great, because we need to do that. And I'm trying to see the money that's left over in the budget at the end of this year, because I've been promising that lady I'd fix her sidewalks.
You know what it would take? A half hour with a garbage show.
Well, they do come, Jan. I mean, in the spring last year, they came, but let's face it, I think we all expected the spring to be here.
Never happens.
And they will clean them, and I had them do it last year, and they'll do it again. The problem is I think...
It didn't show.
Yeah.
Last summer, I still couldn't go.
Yeah, and the state was out there too, but I got it. I got it. Yes, Greg, did you have something to say?
Sure, but I'm more than happy to.
Oh, I didn't see that other hand. Oh, Mike, I'm sorry. I didn't see
Does the town have the personnel to enforce this ordinance and equitably
rather than having selective prosecution, to the, we have, it becomes a piece of paper unless it's enforceable.
Correct.
So somebody would have to inspect every piece of property during a snow emergency or whatever, so that's going to tie the hands of Public Works Department or whoever.
No, right, and again, so I
So
think
it's got to be something else we'd have to.
we're gonna have to talk about it again, right? And I think there's ways, again, to address the issues that are existing right now, but we're definitely gonna have to have further conversation on this. Anybody else? Yes, Mr. Brooks, are you gonna remind me that we're running late?
No, I'm not. You're aware of that already. My thought was, I think we already have, not I think, we do have an ordinance that you yourself or your contractor can't like plow your driveway snow out into the road. We have an ordinance against that already. My thinking is, at least in Hingham Center, if we just add it on, can't put it on the public sidewalks, then you have a vehicle to find the people that are, apparently this is what's generating a lot of the problem in Hingham Center. I don't have the long-term solution, but if we added it to the existing ordinance, that seems to me, then you know, if 3 or 4 guys got fined a couple $100, I got a feeling the word would get around and that would clear that up.
You are probably correct. All right, yes, Mr. McCann.
Okay, thank you. And I've only heard it really once today, but I do want to thank you, all the town employees and volunteers for this, because it is a tremendous amount of hard work, especially with what we've been going through with the budget. And I do get that, and I think it's wonderful that Tyler Bill is being expanded upon, and even probably, contrary to my business interest, potentially, I understand it. And I also understand as a business owner wanting to make sure you do have a place that people want to come to and get to, and certainly would do my part to make sure that that is necessary. And I guess the only thing that I use this time to say is if the town is looking to have us help in sharing the costs in managing this, which I understand these budgets are hard, it comes both ways. Businesses need things too. And, right now, I gotta tell you, I went around and talked to everybody in every business, today. No one wanted to come, okay? There are things that we need, and, I've talked about them before, and, if we can have some great things. It's a phenomenal town. I mean, some phenomenal things are happening. The cove is happening, you cleaned up the cove, you're getting Tylerville going. But Hingham Center needs town sewer and water, and it needs a bathroom. And we've already got one monument right now to the fact that there's no sewer and water, and that's the old hutch. Okay? And I've recently just made a major expansion, probably bigger than what the project should have really called for, with the lack of town services. Okay? And I can't just sit here and say, hey, yeah, okay, I will go ahead and I will do my part. But town really needs to put the necessary spine in the back of businesses, okay? And the lack of sewer and water to the businesses is, you don't really understand how significant it is. And I mean, you understand it, Liz. But I don't know that everyone gets it.
No, and I agree with you, and that is another town meeting and another discussion.
Yeah,
But to your point, just so that the public is aware, we did put an infrastructure committee together to study that, and the committee's only had 2 meetings.
Yeah.
And we're gonna, listen, this town needs to make some decisions.
Yeah.
So once and for all, we're gonna make those decisions.
And we will do, I certainly will do my part to support and help. I just, this is the time to get to say, hey, look at, there's other things that.
I get it. All right. So with that, I am going to close the public hearing. All right, everybody good with that? All right. So, Mr. Brooks. I'm good. So, I'm going to call the meeting to order. There are copies up here. I don't know if anybody wanted to see what the ordinance ordinances were, but we just had a very, I think, healthy discussion on that. Since we did do the Pledge of Allegiance already, I'm going to leave it at that unless anybody objects, because we did do that. So I will, let's see, and I'm going to call the meeting to order and read to note 7:11. All right, and I need a motion for a moderator. Yes.
I'll nominate Harlan first.
I'll second. Any other motions from the floor? I don't know, Harlan. Where is it? There he is. All right. Hearing no other motions, everyone in favor of Harlan Frederickson being moderator for tonight's town meeting, motion by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, Mr. Frederickson. Lori? And nominated. All right, so you get to take notes from this point.
Okay, very good. First thing to do would be to approve the call and notice of the meeting. Has everyone either gotten a copy or had access to the meeting notice? It's rather lengthy. And given that it's rather lengthy, I know while Scott's eager to read that entire thing, I think we could just let the minutes reflect that everyone had access to a copy, and then entertain a motion that the call and notice as written is the call of the meeting.
Excuse me. I mean, I could read the shortened version of the.
Sure.
I'm really thinking I should read.
I think we should read that. Yeah, let's read the
Forego the
Okay.
actual ordinances.
That'd be fine.
All right?
Yep.
Do that now.
Yep.
Legal notice, notice of special town meeting, Town of Haddam. Notice is hereby given to all electors and others entitled to vote at town meetings of the Town of Haddam, Connecticut, the town. The special town meeting of the town will be held on Wednesday, April 11th, 2018, at 6:30 p.m. at the Haddam Volunteer Fire Company, Community Hall, 439 Saybrook Road, Hingham, Connecticut, 06441 for the following purposes. To choose a moderator to preside over such meeting and to consider and vote on the proposed ordinances. 1. An ordinance regarding sidewalk maintenance. 2. An ordinance to repeal Haddam Code Chapter 52-13 regarding waiver of building fees for Class 1 renewable energy systems.
All right. Do we have a motion to accept that as the call of the
I'll
meeting?
make a motion to accept.
And a second? Second. Okay. This doesn't approve anything. It just says we're all in agreement that this is what we're here to talk about tonight. So all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. First, is the first item the sidewalk?
Yes.
Okay. So the first item of business is to adopt the ordinance regarding the sidewalk maintenance. I think while there seems to be, based on the earlier discussion, some concern about that, I think we're still going to move ahead and vote on that. So I'd like to entertain a motion that we adopt the meeting as it was presented, that we adopt that ordinance as it was presented. If I can have that motion in a second, I'll put it on the table for discussion.
Could you table that to another meeting?
No, because this ordinance isn't going to go any farther, so we need to redo and come back. So we really need to vote on it.
Yeah, if it's clear that people object, you can simply vote it down, and the selectmen can work on a revised version.
I move that we accept the ordinance on the sidewalk.
Okay. And is there a second?
A second.
All right. We had a lot of discussion earlier, but I'll certainly entertain some additional comments. And hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
I don't think there's any question that the nays have it. There's no objection, we'll just carry that with or not carry that, I guess I should say, other than voice vote. Okay, so that motion has been turned down. The second item of business is to repeal the ordinance regarding the fees for solar installations. So I'd like to entertain a motion that we go ahead with the ordinance that repeals
Who's that?
ordinance.
Second.
And is there a second? And again, we had a lot of discussion on that earlier, but I'll certainly entertain additional comments before we vote. Sean?
Is this actually the procedural question? Can we have either a hand vote or a written vote on this? Because I think
I'll be happy to call for a hand vote.
I think just the voice vote, it may be a little hard to discern that. Thank you.
That's fine, I agree. Yes.
And this is more of a comment, because I don't think I'm going to change anybody's mind on the vote. This goes back to what Sean was saying about the revenue loss. I think it was $39,000 over 4 years. Is that correct? I missed the beginning part.
Yeah.
So even if it's the $39,000, the 2018-19 budget was put online today. At least I saw it online today. I hope we get this type of turnout and scrutiny on the town budget when it comes to revenue that we're missing and spending expenses. That's the only comment I'm going to make. You've heard me say over and over previous years, but I think we can cut the budgets in places, and I think there's some revenue that we can find. When I was on the Transportation Task Force, we implemented electronic recycling and the textile recycling.
Okay, I don't want to.
Okay, so sorry. So that was just my comment, and that's what Sean said about, so.
Any other comments on repealing the, waiving the fees for solar installations? Okay, if there's no other comments, Peter, would you be a teller? And, goodness sakes. Sure. Ted, would you be a teller? We'll count hands. All those in favor, please raise your hand.
In favor of?
In favor of repeal.
Okay.
Okay, it's sort of a backwards thing, but yes. So a vote in favor will do away with the ordinance. Try it one more time. You gotta hold your hand. Only one hand per person, okay?
Peter counted himself.
And hold your hands up and keep them up high, please. I'm the guilty party.
Let's try the days.
Let's try the days and see if it's close, we'll recount.
I think the paper.
So we have at least 37 no. All those opposed, please.
You can shake your head all you want from here.
That's a pretty group. This is opposed.
Right.
You don't need to do this. So.
So it's 37 to 20. Does anyone object to that tally? Okay. So the motion passes, which repeals the original ordinance. And I think those are the only items of business on the agenda.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?